Recreation and Parks Commission. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Jackie, ready for roll call?
Commissioner Farfan is not here this evening. Commissioner Pierce?
Present.
Commissioner Looms is not here.
He'll be late, but he
okay, thank you.
Traffic.
Vice Chair Davis?
Present.
And Chairperson Moda.
I'm here.
Thank you.
We have a presentation tonight. The drama program will preview their upcoming production of Thoroughly Modern Millie.
Hi, we're from the El Segundo Youth Drama, and this is Emma Byron and Jenna Lockwood, and they're going to be singing How the Other Half Lives.
Those money woes, I'll marry Paul or Dave or Rob or Peter, so I can buy my clothes. That's Saks, Fifth Avenue, Bergdorf, Goodman too, the privileged few, plus you know who. How the other half lives. We could be very good for each other. I'll show you how to eat on a nickel, and I'll teach you which fork to use. I'll show you how to stretch $1, and I'll teach you how to invest one. I'm on the way up, I'm on the way down. It's a good thing we met in the middle. Only the middle, not me. Honey, I don't want those money woes. I'll marry Paul or Dave or Rob or Peter, so I can buy my clothes. That's Saks, Fifth Avenue, Bergdorf, Gushin too, a wild sojourn, so I can live
That was really good. Thank you. Now we'll move to public communications related to commission business only, and that is within the subject matter under the jurisdiction of the commission. Anyone? Step up to the microphone, state your name.
Good evening. My name is Lance Giroux. I'm the president of the Little League here in town. And it was a pretty tough weekend, I think, for everybody, especially when it came to a big loss we had in our community with Mr. Nate Chittick. He was a board member. He was a coach. He was a manager. He was we used to call him a city leader, but he liked the city organizer part a little bit better. And it was just a guy that was just always involved with many, many things. And we would like to try to dedicate something a little bit more, I guess permanent isn't the way to do it, but maybe a little bit more substantial. And I'm not sure exactly what the process is, but our thought process is, as a Little League, was to see if we could possibly rename the snack bar that we have there after him. It's a place that he spent an awful lot of time, he and his family. And I'm just not sure how that process goes. I've gotten some paperwork, and I was wondering if maybe you could guide me a little bit on, A, if this is possible, and then B, what the steps are to try to do this.
We can listen to the communication tonight,
Gotcha.
and we can we can't comment, we can't say anything.
Understood.
But check with staff, and we can have staff contact you, which will be Meredith and or Sean, I would assume.
Okay.
And they can run you through the process, what needs to happen, and then I'm sure however staff directs you, it will come back up to commission.
Okay.
Because it needs to be on
Understood.
our agenda for us to discuss.
Gotcha. It was more or less a kind of a warning that I'm going to be bringing it up at some point in time. So
and that's
I just
great.
wanted to make sure I got
that.
it on there, and I appreciate any help you can give me. All right. Thank you very much.
And Lance, does Meredith have your number to contact you?
Talk a lot.
I hope so.
Not a problem. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Lance, thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, everybody. Hi, my name is Truman Heading, and I am here to say that I have, with my team, created a website about the city of El Segundo called eGundo, and we are in the process of trying to find ways that we can support the Rec and Parks division in helping them get more exposure to the hard work that they do. And we're in the process of creating a video that is somewhat of a promotional piece to support the Magic on Main Street event. And I just wanted to introduce myself. A team gets off at 5, so I can't convince them to stay after 5, or else they'd be here. But we're here to help in any way that we possibly can. So thank you for your time. Thank you for all that you guys do. Hopefully we can help show that.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close public communications and move to the consent calendar. Approval of the minutes of the Recreation and Parks Commission regular meeting of October 18th, 2017. And I do see one thing. Under new business, it says motion by Vice Chairperson Davis and seconded by Commissioner Farfan to appoint Chairperson Moda and Vice Chairperson Davis to a subcommittee. I believe that was Commissioner Rick Pierce. So if we just change the name there. And myself. That was the only thing I saw. And with that, I move approval of the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 3-0. Okay, unfinished business. Consideration and possible action related to establishing a process for identifying and prioritizing future capital improvement projects in the parks and recreation facilities. Recommendation to discuss possible options for establishing a process for identifying and prioritizing future capital improvement projects, and approve or revise the draft project evaluation worksheet. So, or alternatively, discuss and take other action. Meredith?
Thank you very much. Good evening, Commission. As you know, this item is a continued item from our October meeting in which we talked about the allocation this year in the budget to Recreation and Parks and the City Council's desire to have the Commission really discuss and prioritize any capital projects that we as a group feel should be ranked towards the top of the list to utilize the funding for fiscal year 17-18, but also really have a comprehensive list of projects that are prioritized for any sort of future funding opportunities as well. So this year we have a total of $250,000 allocated at this point, and a list of 40 or so projects. So we know that we can't accomplish all of them this year, but I think it's a really great exercise and a new process that I'm looking forward to having in place during the budget season each year. So there was a subcommittee, and Bob and Rick and I met a couple weeks ago. We pulled some examples from other cities. We also had the city engineer, LaFon Shu, join us for a portion of the meeting to review the Capital Improvement Projects Advisory Committee process that the city currently uses, and furthered that discussion about, you know, some of those criteria that they use to rank citywide projects may not be totally relevant to ranking recreation and parks projects. And so it was a great conversation, a good meeting, and the end result is this evaluation worksheet or score sheet that you see in your packet. One thing that I did not include on here, you may be wondering how we get to a score, is that yes answers equals 1 point and no answers equals 0 points. So we'll add that on here to the final version. But basically, how we decided to break it down was into 4 different categories. Core recreation values, strategic planning, financial feasibility and sustainability, and safety and condition. And taking each of those projects, running them through this set of questions, and ending up with a final score for each of the projects. And then my recommendation, and what we've seen in a lot of examples from other cities, is not necessarily ranking them 1 to 40, because funding obviously comes into play. And we may, you know, number 1 might be $400,000 when we only have $250,000. So what I've seen in a lot of examples is that they do a high, medium, or low. So usually the top third might be labeled high priority, the middle third a medium priority, and the lower third a low priority. And that way we have some flexibility depending on the funding options that we have available to us to kind of pick and choose. Do we want to do 3 smaller projects or 1 larger project? And those kinds of conversations will come into play once we go through the scoring process. So tonight, really, I think the subcommittee, and certainly you can add anything that I've forgotten to say or missed, but is to get the commission's feedback on the evaluation worksheet. If there's any questions you have specifically on the questions, we can talk about those. And then secondly, discuss the scoring process and what makes sense in terms of how to go about the scoring process. Bob?
I believe, I really like this sheet. Obviously, we came up with it, so I like it a lot. But we did take from other cities, and we had other ideas, and this came out. And thanks for putting it all in this form. It looks really good here. Obviously, Rick was there. After this, I guess we have to decide who is going to do the scoring. Is it going to be staff, or is it going to be the commission, or is it going to be both? And then who's going to tabulate those? I'm hoping staff is going to tabulate those per project. So, Rick, did you have anything that was necessary to change here?
No, I don't have anything necessary to change. Just wanted to add that,
yeah, please.
Breaking into the different categories is, I've been on a lot of different evaluation teams, and we try to set up what we thought were the most important things to us, and that's a reflection of the conversation that we had. Meredith, I like your discussion about that the ranks were not absolute, and that we're trying to sort them into high, medium, low priority. If we could get those words reflected on this page as well, so that those who come after us understand that that's what its use and purpose was.
Sure.
Again, I think we discussed this. I'd hate to see some coming in and someone says, oh, that's number one on the list, it has to be number one. That wasn't the intent of the sheet. The sheet was to try and figure out the top third, middle third, bottom third, or high, medium, low.
Very good, yeah. Thanks for picking that up.
Lee, you're brand new eyes on this. I'm dying to hear someone else's opinion and thoughts, what you see.
As I look at this and I look at the list, I always put things into dollars. And without looking at dollars, some of the things, when I sit and look at sign kiosks, there's a number of different ways to do it. A simple kiosk could run as little as $300-400, and it might just be a single kiosk. So I think what my first impression is that I'd like to kind of understand what each one of the projects entails. And that way I've got a little bit better grasp of it, because I don't know, I'm more in depth in the plunge, the golf course, the stuff like that.
So Lee, I don't think we're presenting the list here as it's been
Right.
sorted or ranked. I think that's still Meredith's own view with that. So you're absolutely right. Cost needs to be reflected. So whatever the final list of projects is, I would expect to see a score and a dollar amount.
Yeah.
And then we review that as a group.
Yeah, and whatever group that we do choose.
Yeah, and we push them in that priority order the way
And
we
as we
see.
go through this, I'd almost like to have,
Right.
if I were going to sit down, I'd want staff to be there. So if I had a question about, the fitness trail at Memory Row, is this going to entail X, Y, Z?
Yeah, so I'm absolutely
That
in
way
sync
I
with you
know
with the
that-
total process. I think
Right.
right now from our process.
I love
with
the way
this-
it's set up, though.
Yep.
I mean, I really do.
So our
I
first
just think
step is.
there's a little more explanation and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But that's my
And
first.
this was the first step to get us something in front to say, okay, is this a good grading sheet?
Perfect.
Okay, that part of the process we talked about, maybe that's good. And tonight we say, okay, looks good. On to the next, as you just said, is, okay, let's get the dollars. And then the process is Bob laid out.
I think scope would be a better word, because each one of the projects has a certain scope, and they might be staff might be looking at something relatively simple. When I might look at it, I might think it entails, full kiosk at, 12 different places in a given park. And so that just to see the total scope of every project would be nice.
It's like a little narrative saying something about it.
Yeah, a quick paragraph.
Now, my question is,
And that gets more entailed.
do you want to see, or are you interested in seeing the dollar figure before you rate it, or rate it, look at the dollar figure, and then maybe adjust your rating? I'm asking.
Well, and the reason why I went to scope instead of dollar is because once you see the scope of something, you can get a feel for dollar. If they want to put an approximate dollar, because I wouldn't want them to go out and bid everything,
Right.
and I wouldn't want to see that, but the approximate dollar amount, so that we know. And again, I'm not so sure that the dollar is that important at this juncture, but more the scope of the project. So that way I have a definition of the project because of title, and I think we are on the same page that this is the next step would be to go in and further define each project, so that when we do answer it, we're a little bit more informed.
No, I agree that we'd want to see that step. The thing that's in the back of my head is, I don't think we want to protract this out and be like, we launched this in September.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, this is,
So
a lot of this stuff we might be looking, 5 years.
So no, what I was thinking was, is that get the narrative on this, and should we ask the staff to score? Do we want to get the narratives, have the staff score, but don't show us the scores? We get the narratives in, we do some scoring, and come in prepared? I'm trying to get to the next step, if you will, quickly.
Well, let's look at this. Are we okay with this sheet? Let's do one thing at a time and then jump to the
I'm with
next.
you.
Okay. So, since Rick and I have put this sheet together, and are you okay with the sheet? Do you see something that's
Yeah.
glaring that you don't like?
Is there something important that
Please,
we didn't think of?
Or we missed something. That's possible, of course.
But
Highly probable in my case.
from everything that I see, and as I looked it over, I don't see anything that is glaring as far as truly missing. At this point, I like it, but I think as the learning curve goes, we're right here, and we'll probably find stuff down the road.
We can, yeah. I think it can be a living document.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I like it.
Okay. Did you want to jump in here? I see it looks like you do. So
Yes.
please help us out. Really, that's why we're here.
Just in response to some of the comments that were made regarding a narrative and a project description or scope, that's definitely doable, and we can put together, a description of most of the projects. I think what's going to be a little tricky is some of these projects are merely concepts and they're not developed yet, and they may be just ideas. So that would be something that could be further developed. So, a fitness zone. I mean, that could be, like you said, 2 pieces. It could be 10 pieces. It could be 20 pieces. It could be different areas. So some of them are really just ideas that this is what we think may be a need in the community or an expressed desire from community members that still need development. So some of those will probably fall into that category. That could be a pretty, a range of scope and dollars. But if they don't rank high, if the idea doesn't resonate, then we wouldn't necessarily go down that process of further developing the project either. And then regarding the cost estimate, Public Works, the city engineer, definitely offered his assistance as far as, once the project has a narrative and has a description, then we can turn it over to Public Works and they'll help us prepare those cost estimates. They'll know what to look for and what types of construction costs per unit, whatever it might be. And my opinion is that the cost shouldn't play into the scoring, but the cost will play into what the final recommendation to City Council on how to spend the money that we have. So I like to look at it without cost because I want the high priority projects to float to the top. And I think it's really good information to see because as the budget years comes around, we can either start saving money for certain projects. That could be one recommendation to City Council to save money over time on larger projects if they're at the top of the list. Or ask for one-time money, depending on the situation.
The reason why I brought up cost is because one of the 4 topics happens to be financial feasibility and sustainability. So with that being one of the 4 topics, I would assume that finances have to come into play.
That was brought up at the meeting, but we still went with that. And yes, there's going to be some value or cost that we're going to need to know.
Just to enable to answer the questionnaire, you need to have some baseline. And, I'm not asking for obviously hard and fast, but so that we get some idea. And again, it comes back to scope. Right. At some point, we see a simple kiosk at Rec Park is one thing. It doesn't state if it's a kiosk at each and every one of our parks.
Right.
If it's, so that with that, I think if we get a scope, we can kind of draw our own dollar estimate or what it does entail and how much benefit there's going to be to the public.
Right. So part of that is, as Meredith was discussing, if it's not fully formulated yet, maybe it goes on a list as a parking lot item. Mm. So we wind up with a list that we believe has enough detail to put into a rank, and then we have these other things in the parking lot and say, we need some more definition on that before we go X, Y, or Z. And then they graduate in the list when we think we've addressed those type of issues, define them as in some way, shape, or form as a project. To address exactly what you were thinking, because the other part is pretty daunting. There's 46 items right now. This first step to get everything done in the first wave, we might need a little more time.
And money.
Well, that's why we've got the list.
Yeah. Okay. We have a worksheet. You want an approval of the worksheet? Is that where we want to go with this?
Sure.
What do you think? I would approve it, but I would like to get your opinion. I mean,
as far as moving forward, I think we do need to evaluate or assign who's going to be doing the evaluations, whether it's going to be the commission as a whole plus staff, if it's going to be the two leaders within the subcommittee and staff, or if it's you know, something other than that. And then as they move forward, they could kind of, they or we could sit down and make some of these changes. But you know, as far as moving forward, I think just getting the definitions and, you know, the group together, so that way it all moves in one, you know, everyone has buy-in at that point.
Well, my feeling is staff, since they know these projects, should score them, and then I believe the commission should score them also and see how they come out individually. The commission individually, each person score them, and see if we all agree. That's my opinion.
Yeah, do you want the subcommittee in any way, shape, or form to help shape something before coming to the commission, or shape, you know, well, I envision one night we may have 5 people who come in and have their scores. We probably won't sort through everything there. Would the commission or the subcommittee work on that and help kind of bring it back shaped? I mean, is there any...
You're talking about after staff has scored it?
So staff would have scored it. I think you want the commission, each commissioner, to score. So I wasn't hearing any kind of intermediate step there for the subcommittee. After that, we've got to it's how do you want to use the subcommittee is where I'm at. I don't have any predisposition on it. It's just,
I'm not sure that it's necessary. What do you have an idea? I don't know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we would have to have some structure behind tabulating the scores and having depending on if we're going to look at everybody's individual scores, or are we going to total them and come up with averages of sorts, or discuss each and every one and come to one consensus on a score. I mean, those would be my questions on the scoring process at this point.
Yeah, so I kind of what you said resonates with me of getting folks to score it, and I don't think as a subcommittee I want to, at least in the list this big this first time, have that subcommittee take that step away from the commissioners. I think we should all think about it and do the scoring. But I think maybe the subcommittee needs to come back and work through the numbers and see where we got agreements or we don't have agreement, and try to help sort it that way. Then bring it back as a sorted list, having had the inputs, and then folks can look and say, you know, I got a question about this one or these. It might reduce the amount of things we need to talk about in the forum as a group. Just a thought.
Can you put that in the form of a motion so I can understand it?
Dan, can you play it back? No. Let's see. Let me think.
Oh, are we approving the evaluation worksheet? Is that number one?
Well, we had the thing about we wanted to add how the score is calculated, and then, you know, I said we want to put the couple of caveats about the ranks are not absolute.
Okay, with those changes.
I'm absolutely fine with, I'm fine with the questions. So if we want to do a motion to approve the sheet and add those elements, I'm good with that.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll actually make it in English then.
Okay.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve the worksheet with the additional information that Meredith will take on as to put in a sentence or two about how the score is calculated. That the information also includes a statement that the ranks are not absolute, they're for guidance, and that the gist of the ranking is to help us sort the items into high, medium, and low priority groupings. And that way it'd be very clear to other folks as to how we're trying to use this tool.
I second the motion.
Is there any other discussion with that portion?
Sorry. I have nothing to add. I think that's perfect.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 3-0. All right. Now, you want... how we're going to do the score. I mean, how it's going to work together.
Yeah. Want me to take a shot of that?
Go for it.
Okay. All right, so the motion is that Meredith will complete the scoring sheet and distribute the scoring sheet with a list of projects prior to the next meeting. So that's step one. She will, and her staff will do a scoring, so we'll have a staff scoring that's there. Right.
Staff scoring, okay.
That will be available at the next meeting. We will score, the commissioners will score independently and bring that to the next meeting. And so the materials we'll have there will be the sheet with Meredith's scoring on it, and we will individually bring a piece of paper with our scoring on it.
Just so that I'm clear, we're going to have the actual scope for each and every one of the projects prior to actually rating it. So that, are we going to ask her and her staff to put together scope, general scope with approximate dollars, or just general scope for this without, I don't want to overload them in the next 4 weeks.
That's a great question. Yeah.
I believe, well, I'm going to let her answer, but I thought I heard her say it was going to be scope without dollars.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay,
and that's not going to overload you in the next, and the only reason, you know, by the time we scope, have you score and everything else, that's 4 weeks to basically put together 47 little blurbs about each and every one of these and do that.
I'm okay if we go into the next meeting. If it ends up being too much work, I know we're holiday week coming up.
Yes.
So yeah. We're only into 2 weeks of actual staff time, the way I'm calculating. Maybe I'm calculating wrong, but can you tell us what you think you can do? And
sure, I think that for the most part, you know, a 3 to 4 sentence description on each of these will be fairly simple.
I was thinking if we don't have the scope, we could toss it in the parking lot.
Right.
As well. So if like 3/4 of these had the description, we could start from there.
Okay.
So.
Now that we stopped you and
no, it's okay.
Motion going.
Want me to start over again?
No. I got 1, 2, and 3, and you want it brought back next meeting.
Right. And in the idea of getting a good, clean look at it, I separated seeing any scoring by any individual until we gather as a group again next meeting. So, right, including seeing staffs. We want to kind of just see it and absorb it as a group. May take us a little bit to talk through it. We may get something to say, maybe the subcommittee should see this, or maybe we should structure for the next meeting on how to do something. But that's the risk I see with the motion that I had done.
And before anybody seconds that, do you have any assistance or that you want, or anything else that we're missing here?
No, I think it's going to be an evolving process, and as we move through it, there'll probably be some tweaks along the way. So. And
Joseph, Dan, Garcia, any concerns? Because I think you guys are going to get the work. The Meredith's going to review.
I believe in Meredith. We just had a little sidebar over here. So.
Well, I assume that you've got others on staff who also are a little more on the lead on these as well. So it's not just 1 or 2 people doing it. It's going to be a group effort. At least I hope that's that way, because I think we'll get a better product if we have more folks involved in the ideas and go.
I'll second that motion if you were completed.
I thought I was in comment period, but okay, gotcha.
So since we did move as a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And if you need, and there's a problem with timing, just let us know. Well,
okay.
we'll know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sounds good.
Because it looks like a lot of work. Just in the raw numbers here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything else that you wanted done on that? I think we hit it all, right? Okay, good. New business. Discussion and possible action to assign 2 commissioners to the Lakes Task Force to assist with developing components of a request for proposals for future operations of the lakes at El Segundo Golf Course property. Recommendation: assign 2 commissioners to the Lakes Task Force, and or alternatively discuss and take other action related to this item. Meredith, help.
Right. Thank you very much. I think most of you have been following some of this project, and on the heels of the Topgolf project or proposal not getting approved by City Council, we've turned the focus to kind of a now what? Now what do we do at the lakes? And the City Council, at their last meeting on November 7th, created a task force, the Lakes Task Force, comprised of the different representatives that you see here on the report, basically to get together and talk about what are the options, what are the opportunities out there, and how to structure a potential RFP that would be used to solicit, whether it be new types of golf management or golf operations, or restructuring the management contract to more of a lease agreement, to where we would ask somebody to infuse some capital investment into the property. And it could be golf related, but it also could be more open-ended for other public recreation opportunities. A lot of the conversation has, throughout the 5 years during that project review, had to do with the fact that the city did not do an RFP before they selected to go down the road of entertaining the Topgolf idea, and that there may be other options for the property. And there's been a lot of committees along the way, the Vision Committee, a Golf Course Advisory Committee, really focusing on the Parks and Rec values behind the golf course. And while it is an enterprise fund and it does have different financial expectations, we want to make sure that the Parks and Rec values behind that property are maintained. And so the City Council wanted to create a task force. They're all representatives of existing city commissions and committees, and to get together probably about 4 or 5 times in the next 2 months. And it is a difficult time period to get together, but that's why we decided to select members who are already involved and engaged in the community and have some background information on the lakes already. So we have a committee that will be comprised of myself and then city staff from the finance and the planning departments. They've allotted 2 spaces for Recreation and Parks Commissioner, so 2 of the 5 of you hopefully are willing to participate. A planning commissioner, and they have a special meeting to select their representative at the end of this month. The golf course subcommittee have a delegate, and they had a special meeting earlier today, where they elected John Goot, who is the representative from the El Segundo Men's Golf Club. He's also sits on the golf course subcommittee, and then a Chevron representative and an Economic Development Advisory Committee representative, potentially the same person, or 2 people. So that's still to be determined by that committee. So tonight we're here to hopefully select 2 of you to represent the commission, Recreation and Parks, on this committee. I did speak to Alex. He's not here tonight, but he sits on the golf course subcommittee, and he is willing to be a representative just because of the tie to the committee that he currently sits on. So that's an option in front of you tonight also.
Okay, thank you for that. Thoughts? Interested? I know Alex, I believe Alex should definitely, Commissioner Farfan should definitely be on there, since he is on the golf course subcommittee. If anybody's got a different thought, please let me know. Oh, Dave. Hey.
Hey.
Nice to see you.
You guys waited to start, right?
Yeah. We're blowing right through this thing.
Do you anticipate the meetings being during the day?
Most likely. I think, I mean, off the top of my head, I was thinking, well, I'm open. It really doesn't make a difference to me. I think that it really comes down to who is participating. Well, that's a tough question. I don't know.
Depends on a lot of things, probably. Because I would definitely be interested, but if there are 4 or 5 meetings in December, January, all during the day, I couldn't commit to all 4 or 5, so I would remove myself if they were during the day.
I'm looking at the representatives. City employee, Recreation and Parks Department, planning, finance, planning. That's 3, right? That's 3 city employees.
Numbers
I'm going to guess they're going to be lunchtime or 4 or 5 o'clock. Am I close?
That's when I like to schedule meetings.
I'll remove my name from consideration.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because I
really I'd like you to be there, but got to work too.
Are the meetings open to the public?
Yes.
So even if I weren't on it, if I could make 1 or 2, I could. But then I can't participate. I have to sit and listen. It should be hard for me.
Well, there's a community comment
There'll
section.
still be
that.
public communications at those meetings.
Okay.
And you know, you're part of the public. Dave already gave it. Lee.
With that being said, I have attended a few of the golf meetings. I do have interest in it, and I would like to be one of the representatives.
No, I want to make sure we get to number 2, discuss possible other actions. I have some other questions about the way forward. I don't have any issues relative to assigning a couple commissioners.
So,
and I do not need to put my name in the hat. I don't think I can support it either.
Okay, I have.
What about you, Bob?
I have a desire to do it, but I think it would be good that Lee does it and Alex, but I want to put myself, if it's agreeable, as an alternate if they cannot make it to one of the meetings. So there you go. You've heard it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I think what we're trying to avoid is having too many commissioners there that it creates that it's a Rec and Parks Commission meeting.
But I do want to make sure that we do have 2 representatives at every meeting. So if somebody cannot make it, they need to give me a call, or whoever the alternate is.
I think it shows our commitment to that team. Yeah,
I would go so far as to say, let's go double alternate. I mean, let's make sure we have 2. What if you're not available? Are you allowed to do that?
Okay, then that's even better.
Let's just go.
Like it.
Cool.
First alternate, second alternate.
My name's still out. I think I'm gonna have a lot of travel.
Okay, so that's easy. Dave, you're the
second alternate.
Second alternate.
So you want me to make a motion?
Everybody gets a trophy.
So I think we need to make a motion, right? So let me make
the motion is for Alex Farfan to be 1, Lee Davis to be Commissioner Davis to be the second one, and a couple of alternates. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 4-0. And then I guess we're not done with this. We're moving to alternatively discuss and discuss other actions.
Let's discuss for a second.
Okay. Go ahead.
So Meredith, I'm familiar with the federal government's process for considering projects. It starts first with what's called a request for information. So when the federal government's not exactly sure what it wants to do from a precision perspective, they say, maybe I should solicit other folks with good ideas. Then after they figure out what they want to do, they go to a step of issuing a request for proposal to actually get in ideas based upon what they've decided. Does the city not have a request for information step?
I don't think officially. I think the city, each city department sort of does their own RFP process. I think it's more
Okay.
open-ended than structured at this point. But I have heard of, statement of qualifications or something of that nature.
Okay, because
It's not allowed.
in the terms I'm used to, I just see a ready, fire, aim. And maybe it's a ready. I think what I'm concerned about is just went through a 5-year process. Got to a point of execution, made a decision, moved on. And I don't know how well supported the whole decision process was, because here we are today with a golf course that still has the same needs, has the same fire, and we're trying to figure out where we want to go. And to me, that feels like it's more of a come up with ideas. Don't ask people to bid something in. What are the ideas? Hear the ideas out. Figure out what that is. And after figuring out what it is you want, then looking for a proposal. Because I hate to put somebody back through a rigmarole of a proposal type process with no outcome on the back end, because we didn't know where we were aiming in the first place, potentially. And with the length of time that we're in it, we've had changes in leadership, and that's going to happen. And so that's where we're at. But if we had something on a foundation saying we need to get this the following way, maybe we wouldn't feel as if we're starting over again.
With that being said, as I attended one of the meetings, the first thing I asked him, and one of the things that I would really want to be clarified before we move to a proposal is what are our goals for any given facility, whether it be a plunge, an aquatic center, a golf course, or a fence to retain people into a park. Is that what is the goal and how can we go about it? Once you establish your goals, then we can start looking to see if any proposals are going to come matching to it. So I'm hoping that one of the first things we can sit down with is establish the goals for the facility. And once you do that, I think then you can move on with proposals. And I'm not so sure that's been addressed in the past.
I'm in sync with you, because that's gathering that information will help us figure out what establishment
and that might require the city to sit down and take a survey or something to that effect. We'll decide that obviously in the meeting, but at some point we need to understand, exactly what is wanted from this facility, so that when we do go through a 5-year process, we know that we're on the right track with everyone, and hopefully it's not a 5-year process.
Exactly. I'm hoping it's not a 5-year process, but that's what this task force is for, is to see what they want.
I share Rick's concern, particularly with the short timeline. That's the thing that scared me. So in a 6-week period, that committee is, based on what I'm reading, expected to solve a problem that took 5 years. Didn't come to fruition. So I guess we still can give our input to the representatives on what this committee kind of,
and that's what my discussion is all about. What do we want to have our commissioners put and represent? And I think we're seeing synergy here as a group. And so
I'm hoping that there's going to be one of these task force meetings before our next meeting. If they're going to try to push 4 or 5 meetings in 6 weeks, I would assume that would be one before or 2 before our next meeting. We'll get some answers. We should have some answers of what they're looking for. With Lee there, we'll get some answers, I think. So, unless you have another way to go about it.
No, I think it's going to be very difficult to request a proposal without assessing your goals and the desires of the community.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be very hesitant unless some sort of magic happens in a group of 12
until
people.
I know exactly what the community wants and this group wants. I cannot imagine us moving on with a proposal.
So Lee, I took something what you just said. Are you thinking of some sort of community survey?
We need to understand what the community wants, if that means a survey, and that will be up to, I assume, the commission. to sit down and identify the needs of the community for that facility. Once they do that, then we can sit down and start to look at what the facility or the proposal might look like.
So would you be amenable to saying that maybe this commission says that the voice we want heard from the Rec and Parks Commission in this is that we want to make sure our community is surveyed?
And we are representatives of the community, correct?
Right. I mean, it goes in with saying two of the members are going to come unified because we as a group said we think this is important from Recreation and Parks, right? So voice the community with that regard to that, both in our action and in what we're looking to get.
It appears as though it's a task force.
Yep.
As opposed to a commission. It will have a lot of different opinions, I'm sure.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that we're thorough in understanding what the entire community wants from this facility, right, and see to it that a proposal is going to be reflected in those wants and desires.
Well, I think part of what folks are expecting is that this will eventually come back through the Recreation and Parks Commission for a project that would be sanctioned going forward. So I think we'd be stating what we think a need is going into this project when the task force, as it comes back up for staffing.
I think that would be established by the council to see if it comes back through
right.
us.
They don't necessarily have to take our advice or our way. But I think this is a place where we as a commission can say we want to have our voice heard.
Correct. The way council's been leaning, they want it to come through the commissions before they act on it.
So I think, Lee, that would be one of the first discussions you might have with the group is once this committee comes to some sort of decision or recommendation, is that going to come back through this room before it goes to council, or is this commission going to be skipped in that process?
I think that answer, Meredith, you have that answer. What I heard when I listened to them try to figure this out at council is that they want a decision or anything to come back, anything that's related to Recreation Parks to come back to this commission. Is that what you heard?
That is also what I heard, and I think that there are definitely a good amount of the city council who are really trying to make sure that this commission in Recreation and Parks is better represented than previously.
Yeah, the reason for my piping up is because I feel what's on the paper was done honestly to move us forward, but I felt there was a flaw in it, and that flaw was voice of the community, knowing what we want to get. And so to me, this is an input to help shape this, because what I see on the page, let's point to commissioners, thumbs up. What we're trying to do in this, I think it needs to be shaped a little bit more.
I think another thing that will work in our favor in that regard with not moving too quickly and making sure we're doing it properly is, the construction and building community is a small community. So this has been going on for a long time. So this is not something that is, or this is something that that is widely known what happened here. Mm-hmm. So if we were to move too quickly, I believe that the market itself would correct us and say, we're not going to spend a bunch of time and energy putting in a proposal when we don't even know what you guys really want. So, I mean, in our favor, that is. So I think that while it might be a really, I don't know, trying to do 5 or 6 meetings and get this done was when I read it, that was your concern. My concern was, wow, that's really fast to come up with. So I guess our representatives will relay that to the group.
You've got the benefit of this conversation standing behind you, saying we've talked about this and this is where our voice is.
You okay?
I am.
I just want to make sure that, I mean, was there more that, when I say that, is there more that you want to add to that, No,
I think it's...
I really believe that Commissioner Davis will voice our concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Okay, we will now move to reports. Aquatics Subcommittee. Anything?
On the aquatics agenda, we did meet, the South Bay Sports Health and Recreation did meet, and we went over some of the future goals for fundraising for the aquatic center. And we're sitting there looking to regroup on a new plan to come out with a new marketing campaign, working with Palucci as far as seeing to it that the city's able to see exactly what they're going to get with this investment into the new aquatic center. And trying to work with Gensler to see to it that we have some of the graphics for the wall that people will be able to put themselves on, and the stepping stones to the entrance of the pool. So we're waiting for graphics and trying to get back up to speed on that. And that's about all that's really happened as far as that committee. I know that there was I think there were some other meetings this week with some construction stuff.
But as far as the committee itself, we haven't met.
No, the committee is due to meet, and it's in your notes. I want to say December 15th, something like that. So we're meeting mid next December.
We don't have, well, nothing's on the calendar at this point. In the report is referencing the City Council El Segundo Unified joint meeting. But the aquatics subcommittee, we can definitely put something on the calendar here for the next few weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry. So that is for the Unified School District and the council.
Yeah.
So you've been involved in this for a very long time, and you continue to be involved in meetings that are quasi-related to the subcommittee. My question for you and Meredith, I guess, is what is the current charge of this aquatics subcommittee?
Current charge?
Yeah. Are there tasks to be accomplished? I mean, it sounds like a meeting's coming up, but other meetings occur with other subgroups and decisions are made and move forward. I'm just not fully understanding exactly what, now that we're into this point.
Most everything's been addressed. Funding is still taking place, but is secured, if that makes any sense. Construction is coming up with a few twists and turns, which are not necessarily positive, so that we're trying to make sure our timeline stays complete, and it may or may not.
And is the subcommittee making decisions with regard to those?
A lot of it's straight out construction. And as of recently, I know that there's one twist, and I don't know the details, so I'm not really comfortable commenting on. But the subcommittee has not met in a while, and so that as far as actual decisions, they're not necessarily being made. I think that the most critical decision that's going to be made here in the next couple of weeks or month or two is going to be the aquatic supervisor. That person is then going to have a much better grasp of exactly what direction we're going to move with the actual programming of the pool. The facility itself, I think, is pretty much in line and going forward, despite the little twists and turns.
And if I could add, from an internal standpoint, Ericia and I are continuing to work with our consultant, Stu Isaac, and this subcommittee, the two of you, and then the two council members, we'll reconvene. It's on an as-needed basis, but the way that I approach it is to bring that subcommittee information when we're preparing to adopt a policy or adopt new fees or ask for resources and things of that nature. So on the top of our list that we're working on right now is our more internal things. Ericia is starting to work on operations manuals and lifeguard training and getting some things like that set up. And Stu, our consultant, is working on we'll be benchmarking fees and making sure that the fees that were used in the financial analysis 2.5 years ago, updating the recommendations for that. So fees and probably determining what the best oversight committee moving forward after the pool opens. Those are the types of policy decisions that will be brought in front of the subcommittee.
Okay, thank you. And golf course subcommittee, Commissioner Farfan is not here tonight. Meredith, was there anything other than them selecting a task force member?
That is the update for Golf Course Subcommittee. Their next regular meeting is December 6th.
Okay, thank you very much. Youth Sports Council, Commissioner Pierce. I was there also, but there was one thing, Commissioner Pierce.
Okay. Want me to give a rundown?
Brief discussion or whatever.
I will be brief. So we had a good gathering of folks. Meredith supported, Garcia was there, Sean Green was there. The other gentleman's name escapes me. Tyler was there. We had a good showing from the Youth Sports Council, very well attended in regards to folks who use the campus facility. Folks were very knowledgeable. We also had a couple of folks who are very interested in the city but not on the Sports Council, and Mayor Pro Tem Boyles attended as well. We started out talking about I think the reason the meeting was called was really to get into the signage and the use of the facility and to preserve the investment that we had made. And so sticking with that within the agenda, it was a little more dynamic than where I was expecting. So the first thing that really came out of the meeting was signage and usage of the field. I don't know how many of you recall seeing the signs that we do have posted out at campus. We've got a fair amount of rules that are addressed. I think the group came to a consensus of maybe we don't need as many words. Maybe we need to focus on a few things. Like, for example, there was a question about should we just say no food as opposed to listing all the food types or things like that. And so Meredith and the staff were going to go back and look at that as maybe some well-placed, like no chewing gum as another example. Not necessarily to take down the sign that was there, but to put up other signage that helps reinforce and gets people as they come through the campus facility. The mention of the sandwich board that was placed out there right after we finished construction, folks took notice of that, and folks are paying attention to it. So in addition to having the rules posted and shown, the follow-up to that was staffing and enforcement, and what was the appropriate way to do that. Talk was about how to use existing staff. Talk was about staffing levels. Went through, and an action was again signed to staff. I think Sean Green picked this one up, which was basically to look at what should the policy be for the employees to do that, how many employees should we have, at what times should employees be there. So Sean was going to go away, do a little bit of analysis, work with Meredith, and come back with a proposed strategy. But the one conclusion from the discussion was that we're looking for the staff to engage with enforcement. We definitely want the groups that are there supporting it, but the staff has a role with that as well. That staff involvement in the facility extended itself to a conversation about group usage, right? Groups are now paying fees for the facility. And there's been questions about folks coming in who are not part of the user group that has the reservation for the park at that point in time. Enforcement of that had been we kind of learned as we went along. There was no hard and fast rule. And I think the discussion there was maybe we should go in a direction of maybe having more of a rule and saying, look, Group A has reserved the facility. I'm sorry, you're not part of this group. You don't have a reservation this evening. Please do not come to the field. The exact implementation of that was kind of batted around, but not resolved. So it could be a matter of staff going through, being able to identify somebody who's not part of the group, but that could provide some complications in trying to figure out who really is or isn't with the group. Another discussion was posting hours and utilization and reservations in some sort of prominent area so that folks know and are used to that. Again, action taken by the group. And another discussion that came up was relative to drop-ins as well. And this was more around the core hours of lunchtime. There was a little bit of an analysis that Meredith and staff presented. I have it here. The top-level summary is most of the drop-ins during the 10 to 2 p.m. hour are non-residents, on the order of a handful of like 1, 5, 6 residents for an entire month using the facility, and non-residents in the ballpark of 122, 180, 75. So there was a question about the facility at that point in time. That took us into another discussion about assigning as it's a facility or a park. I think there's going to be some more discussion relative to that as to how we want to use that area, right? There were some definitional things. I think folks wanted to talk with the lawyers a little about that. Commissioner Moda had mentioned that was a discussion we had back in 2006, 2007, when the facility first opened, about how it was designated. So the long and short on that is, you can see there were several actions that were assigned out. Actions were given and taken, and we're coming back to the Youth Sports Council to talk through what the staff had figured out. And I expect that when the Youth Sports Council works through all that and says, yeah, that seems like it kind of makes sense to us, we'll bring back the details to the commission here. So,
was there any outcome, or what are the next steps with regard to that 10 to 2 period that is not being utilized by residents?
We left it as is. There was concern about, the concern ran the whole gamut. Folks were, is that putting extra wear and tear on the facility? Is it, what is that impact? Is it worth having staff there at that point in time? Is that was kind of getting maybe a little away from where we were there originally assembled for. But that's where the conversation kind of went, but there was no action taken relative. It was an appreciation that those are the facts, if you will. That
discussion is continuing in the department, I presume?
Yeah, we continue to monitor it and analyze it and keep the data as far as the usage and, you know, what revenue is it generating versus what it's costing us to staff the facility during those hours. And like Rick mentioned, it's still, there was no discussion necessarily about taking action at this point. I think that there are some other higher priority items to address to make the user experience a little bit better. And but I do think it's still something worth discussing in the future.
Yeah, we kind of got into those other elements because of the fact of there was a belief coming into the room that the drop-in activity may have added more wear and tear. If you're familiar with other facilities around the South Bay area, they may not get as much throughput through their fields the way we do. What comes to my mind is many of those are on school property. At least my experience with AYSO, that's where it's led me. And so those, they don't get the wear and tear, they last longer. And so the questions became about how do we preserve the investment, right? We just had a large capital expense for that. Pro Tem Boyle said, you know, it is a zero-sum game. There's no money tree that we can just pull stuff out of. We've got to think about that. So I think it's prudent for Meredith and her staff to think about it. I'm not sure that comes back through the Youth Sports Council. I mean, Meredith has a direct line on whatever issue or topic she wants. I just wanted to let you know that was out there in that meeting.
Is there anything that you wanted to add? You were there. Okay.
Anything you wanted to add?
Nope. You said it all. I guess there is one thing. There was some things that, you know, they wanted done. There was some definite opinions that close that place down. You know, there's no reason to keep it open from 10 to 2. But we're going to see. I think the best thing is to see where staff comes back with some recommendations. So there was some.
Was there any discussion about the user groups themselves policing themselves better? And I specifically am referring to halftime food at soccer games that is already on the turf.
I believe they're doing that. Yes, that was discussed, and they will take that. They said they were taking care of it themselves.
There was verbal commitment to it. Nothing beyond, I think, what you would have seen previously as an AYSO parent.
Right. It's just now that it is brand new, I'm more.
That's
Absolutely.
part of the
heightened awareness.
So you have exactly the reason why the meeting was called. And so, you know, there's elements too of, there was a question about Gatorade. Gatorade comes up quite a bit. as a barred substance. Question I had talking with Sean on several occasions is, when you pulled up the turf, was it because of Gatorade? Did you see a lot of Gatorade damage relative to it? He didn't do any kind of specific analysis on it, but from looking at it, that wasn't really where he thought everything was at. So I was at the meeting, and there were a couple times I voiced up and said, I don't want to chase after ghosts. We should be looking for real impacts and things that really will extend the life of the turf.
In my opinion, though, it's not the Gatorade itself, it's the can of worms that you're opening with the Gatorade. Because if Gatorade's okay, then why not Hawaiian Punch? Hawaiian Punch is okay, then why not? So in my personal opinion, I agree with what you're saying, but you open that can of worms, and then everyone thinks, oh, if they have Gatorade.
Yeah,
so,
there's a lot of other things.
I'm a water-only guy.
Yeah, and that's fine. And we did not decide that at the meeting, because there's an element of just good policing and saying, you know what, we don't want food, we don't want Gatorade in that facility, and maybe that's just the way we should progress, right? Makes it nice and simple. You don't want to see anything other than water going through that. I think that's fair and reasonable for folks to think about, come back, and then for us as a commission to have an opinion on.
Okay. Department staff reports. Erisea.
Good evening, Commissioners. I don't have any real new information outside of not to forget about the tree lighting that we will have on a Saturday this year instead of a Thursday. And we have a lot of extra activities going on out there, so please join us. Also, the drama show that you saw this evening, first 2 weekends in December, you will get an offer for tickets, so please try to join us at the drama celebration, our event. But moving forward, as the staff winds down this year, we're starting to look at 2018 and really get an overview of everything that we do during the year and actually analyze it and see what we're doing, what we can do differently, maybe better, maybe work smarter. So they're a little excited about that. They get to sit back now and really analyze what they're doing. So we're excited about that. Also, on the heels of aquatics, we are getting ready to post the aquatics recreation coordinator and recreation supervisor. So that's a big deal for us. We have a lot going on going into 2018. We have recreation management software going in about spring, correct, Meredith? Also with the aquatics facility opening with new staff onboarding and more lifeguard staff onboarding. So recreation will be very busy next year along with the events that we already do. So any questions?
The supervisor and coordinator, are those just for the new facility, or are they going to be for both facilities?
For both.
For both.
Technically all four facilities,
sure.
But
Anything else? Okay.
3.5.
Okay. Mr. Joseph Casillas.
Good evening, Commission. Park projects and improvements. Parks and Building Maintenance Department are installing a new electrical line and power pedestal to serve the upcoming Christmas event and for future recreation and park events. Park staff has completed training with the new turf equipment at Campus El Segundo, presently maintaining it. Our tree report. West Coast Arborist is trimming the trees presently at Library Park. They had to pull out today due to a fact there was a commercial being filmed today, so they'll be back there tomorrow. City trees. The city department is trimming trees along West Imperial at Memory Row. We're doing the curb line and signage clearance, and we're raising them up. So we started that like last week. Mm-hmm. And that's about it. Any questions?
Go ahead.
What is the difference in the maintenance program at campus as it was previously?
Right now we're sweeping the carpet more of the turf, wetting it more. Keeping the shine of it, the appearance of it. More when it comes to the turf maintenance, we're trying to get that pretty much as a daily instead of just as needed. We're trying to present that, to keep the maintenance of it. Also, the care of the hardscape too, with the bubble gum like that. We did a high pressure wash. We're going to be scheduling that like once a month right now and go as needed. I mean, if we have to bump it up more, we're going to bump it up more. Regarding the landscape too, so I've been in touch with land care and been working with them to maintain the land care around the park facility.
And did that increase in service impact your department and other places? Because that sounds like a lot more than you used to do.
Right, of course it's going to impact our department, so I just got to schedule it when there's free time to do it, and it's usually really super early morning time, like 7-ish to 8 in the morning. So everything that's going on over there with our staffing is early morning assignments, which will allow them to move more quickly and rapidly and get back to their assignments, the original assignments.
And did you do any sort of maintenance program through the company as well? Or
right, we did training with the new equipment that established. Also, we also have recreation staffing. Pete Whalen, he does also sweeping too. He does everything on Tuesdays and Thursdays right now, so he helps out a lot. He's an amazing guy.
You should do it every day.
And he's always reporting to me if he needs something, or, he's always keeping me updated.
But as far as like a field turf, you don't have like they come once a year to do like the official program. We're all doing it in-house.
Yeah, we're doing it in-house. We have extra rubber at a city yard.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask.
Yes, if we see any like low spots, or, we'll run the irrigation to see where the water puddles are established, or during the rainy season, we'll observe them. And then we'll go in and blend it in and try to establish a level playing field.
Cool.
So,
and do you keep both I'm just curious about the pellets. Do you keep both black and green?
Yes, we have black and green.
You didn't mix them up?
So
interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Joe, just for clarity for everybody who may be watching, the training that you received is different than where we were about 10 years ago.
Right. It's all been updated equipment from, that was sort of like a dinosaur age. That was the new beginnings back then. It's been improved a lot better. It's not sweeping as much pallets. It's more getting the leaf material and lifting up the leaves.
Right. So we got better materials, different type of turf technology, training, investment in the staff to preserve that.
The quality is a lot better than it was 10 to 15 years ago when it first came out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dan O'Toole, El Segundo TV manager.
Good evening, Commissioners. You have my report in front of you. There is one ad. We had our news show come out this evening. It's on YouTube and also on our channels airing. Second thing I brought you is a show and tell. I thought it was interesting. I had a little technology thing in the report, so I wanted to show you. I dug out the 1999 Halloween Frolic to show you what it was shot on. And what's interesting is that's my writing. So that's probably my baby. And now our Halloween Frolic and about 12 other shows are on this. So we are moving forward at El Segundo TV. It's a great age to be in local TV. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Do you still have a machine that can play that tape?
Yes, we do, and I guard it with my life because the heads on those are $800 a piece.
Yep.
So you don't want to just be feeding it a lot of tapes. You got to make sure they're in okay shape and really watch it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Department Director Report. Meredith.
All right, so we talked a little bit about the aquatics joint meeting coming up, but there is another joint meeting between the City Council and the El Segundo School Board on December 14th at 6 p.m. It's in the EOC, which is at the police station across the plaza here.
That's open to the public as well?
It's open to the public. It will be agendized, and this is a continued conversation with the use of a facilitator to talk about El Segundo High School's future usage of the new aquatic center and a financial contribution from the school district to the city, most likely to assist the refurbishment of the plunge in the future. So those conversations will be ongoing, and we'll be preparing leading up to that and making sure that they have all the information that they need to have some fruitful conversations. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight was the last bullet under Centennial Celebration, and this is regarding the possible creation of a Centennial Park. And the Centennial Committee, after December 2nd, our event on December 2nd, that's sort of the culmination of events for the year-long festivities for the Centennial. And we'll be balancing the budget and reconciling everything after that. But we're anticipating having some excess funds. It could be anywhere from $30,000, maybe $40,000 to be used. And throughout the year, there's been discussion in that Centennial Committee about what to do and how it would be nice to do something that would be a permanent fixture within the city to recognize the Centennial. You know, we've had a lot of events, but those come and go. And so one idea that's really caught on and we've talked more and more about is the idea of designating this grass area on Holly, which is just adjacent to City Hall here. Holly and Main. The entrance to City Hall, which is the north entrance. A grass area that's pretty heavily used, particularly during special events that are on Main Street, Farmers Market on a weekly basis. We see a lot of kids out there, a lot of people walking their dogs through the grass area. And it's pretty bare right now. We had about 4 ficus trees that were removed about a year ago. Joseph and the crew have established the new turf over there. And so the idea is to designate that a park and call it Centennial Park and do some improvements with that area. Now the conversation has obviously snowballed into, you know, what could be some benches and some new trees and a sign to bigger and loftier ideas, which are really great and exciting ideas, but we need to sort of bring it back to reality and talk about really what's realistic. The Centennial Committee engaged the Arts and Culture Committee, and through that conversation, we came to the idea of let's have an open meeting and let's invite representatives from other committees and commissions, such as Recreation and Parks, that are relevant to this conversation to just sort of conceptualize what could be some ideas and then hopefully take it to the city council with a recommendation on how to utilize these excess funds, what the concept might be to create this new park. So, with that being said, we are looking at holding a meeting on Wednesday, November 29th, probably in the late afternoon, and would open it up to representatives from Recreation and Parks Commission, Arts and Culture, the Centennial Committee. There's a downtown committee that's meeting currently, possibly economic development. I mean, there's all sorts of interested parties that might want to attend that and just make sure that it's an inclusive process.
Are these donations? These are donations.
It's a combination, mostly donations. The city did allocate some general fund dollars, so the city allocated about $75,000 to the Centennial as a whole, and donations that were brought in were $170,000. And then we've also generated some revenue through ticket sales to some of the events and also with the sale of the merchandise.
So the reason I ask is, if we were to spend $15,000 on Centennial Park, would the remainder of that money go towards recreation and to the added to the $250 that we're talking about?
Doubtful.
Fair enough.
Anything else? Okay, as long as we're talking about your report, Jackie Day, happy anniversary for 10, it says here 10 years for the city.
And now she knows it too.
So, okay.
I have a question for Meredith.
Please go ahead.
So here we are, we're looking at this conversation about what we're going to do with the golf course. In the meantime, we have a facility that needs to be managed. And my understanding is that the facility has quite a substantial investment tied up with it. That was part of the reason I think there was a conversation in the first place to talk about if there was something else we could do. Is there a part of the city that the city manager, yourself, someone else who sees the performance of that facility on a monthly basis.
Our golf course subcommittee that meets every other month
Okay.
has a financial report included in the
And they report to,
There's 2 city council members who sit on the committee. One commissioner and then the
so it goes
management
directly
company.
to the city council from there. Okay. So there's no role then for the Recreation Parks Commission in our purview to look at that.
I wouldn't say there's no role. I think that just historically, we're probably missing that piece. I think is probably what you're getting at.
No, it's not if I'm missing that meeting or not. It falls underneath Recreation and Parks. I mean, there's not a lot of guidance when you sign up for this role as to where you are and where you're not. So you kind of come in following where we've been before. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where we need to go in the future. And I'm looking at this right now, which is I'm concerned that we've got that level of expenditure, and I'm wondering, as a commissioner, do I have a role to poke at it? And golf course lives up underneath our commission, and I'm going to poke at it until I'm told otherwise. Because it is a substantial investment. It is a substantial investment that is going to continue for a number of months. Because despite getting an RFP in February, if that's the case, that'll be the first volley in the conversation. So from my seats, I'm looking at it saying, we do, as a body, we do want to invest in the community. There's no doubt in my mind about that. The question becomes how much, and where is that line relative to it? I just don't see that conversation occurring. And I feel it's personally incumbent to have it possibly come out of this body if it's not coming out elsewhere. And it's so be it. If it's through my voice, it's through my voice. So I'm just looking at it and saying, you know, there's a certain amount of expenditure going out. I don't want to talk numbers because I don't know what the numbers are precisely. But one would wonder if there's a way to tug on our belt and find ways to cut into what those expenditures are. Find out places where we're maybe financially healthy and places where we're financially struggling. What could we do different to possibly bring that cost down? Because it's a zero-sum game. If it's going to that, it's not going elsewhere. And I'm looking to see about shining the light on that maybe a little bit more in this commission. So, you know, I think at the last meeting I'd ask about, can we see utilization numbers? Can we get someone from the golf course to give us a presentation? I mean, that's a task force. This is a standing commission, has responsibilities over that facility, as I understand it. It is a focal point in the community right now, right? I think the folks should be looking at it and saying we're being good stewards of the community's resources. So I would like to see the golf course person here, and if that's already occurring somewhere else in the city, I don't want to duplicate effort either. So that's where I'm poking.
We used to have someone from the golf course, Scott Morgan, every meeting show up, and he hasn't been here in years.
Ooh.
So maybe that can happen again. It would really be good if it did.
Yeah, I don't know what the golf course represents in your total budget authority, but if the numbers I had heard are right, my goodness, some of these projects we were talking about earlier in the evening could be done with some of that. So, and that's where it's under our purview. I think we should gather it in. Maybe we've neglected a little bit too long. I know I looking back, I say, well, I was kind of thinking the city council would work this project through and we'd get to where we wanted to be, it would take care of itself, and it didn't. So, maybe I was remiss personally for not thinking differently 12 months ago. So I'm thinking about it now and thinking about going forward.
Okay. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Farfan is not here tonight. Commissioner Pierce, any comments?
No, sir. I think I said enough this evening. Thank you.
Commissioner Lubes. I'm sorry? Okay, thank you. Vice Chairperson Davis.
Again, Jackie, 10 years, congratulations. One thing I did want to mention is about three weeks ago now, the swim team in town hosted a swim meet. It was the first swim meet to be officially sanctioned by USA Swimming. It was just an inter-squad meet, but they have gone from, I think, 28 swimmers up to a waiting list at 80. So aquatics is reviving, and I think I'm personally very happy with the direction it's going. Other than that, I have nothing further.
Okay, and the only thing I have tonight is I want to make sure everybody gets out to the drama program, and we have amazing talent in town, and should get out and enjoy that. And everyone have a happy Thanksgiving next week. And we will move to public communications. Seeing none, we'll close public communications. And tonight I would like to adjourn the meeting in memory of my mom, who passed away Saturday. She really enjoyed what we do as volunteers, and I'm going to miss her a lot.